After completing this course, you'll be able to explain innovation and how it's being used by today's managers. But first, we need to understand organizational change. Organizational change is defined as the adaptation of a new idea or behavior by an organization. Sometimes change and innovation are spurred by forces outside the organization. Other times, managers within the organization see a need for a product or service innovations, for creating greater efficiencies in operations, or for other alternatives to keep the organization profitable. Two concepts that identify the need for change in today's environment are disruptive innovation and the ambidextrous approach. Disruptive innovation refers to innovation in products, services, or processes that radically change competition in the industry, such as the advent of streaming video or audio ebooks. Disruptive innovation is becoming a goal for organizations that want to remain competitive on a global basis. Companies that initiate disruptive innovation typically win big, and companies affected by disruptive innovation may be out of business. For example, when Netflix began, few people, including Blockbuster managers, saw it as a threat to Blockbuster, the giant firm for renting videos and DVDs and video games. Because most of Blockbuster's customers didn't want to order a movie online and wait several days for it to arrive through the mail. But change, such as that associated with disruptive innovation, is not always easy, and many organizations struggle with changing successfully. In some cases, employees don't have the desire or motivation to come up with new ideas, or their ideas never get heard by managers who could put them into place. In other cases, managers learn about good ideas, but have trouble getting cooperation from employees for implementation. Successful change requires that organizations are capable of both creating and implementing ideas, which means the organization must learn to be ambidextrous. An ambidextrous approach means incorporating structures and processes that are appropriate for both the creative impulse and the systematic implementation of those innovations. A loose, flexible structure with greater employee freedom are excellent for the creation of innovation and ideas. However, these same conditions often make it difficult to implement a change because employees are less likely to comply. With the ambidextrous approach, managers encourage flexibility and freedom to innovate and propose new ideas with creative departments and other mechanisms. The bottom line is this: every organization must change and innovate to survive. Before we get started, we need to define the term change. For the purposes of this course, change is all about a transformation or modification. And resistance to change is one explanation for why implementing change is so difficult. People resist change for several reasons, and understanding these reasons is a good start towards knowing how to bring about needed change in organizations. People typically resist change because they believe it conflicts with their self-interests. A proposed change in job design, structure, or technology may increase employees' workload, for example, or cause a real or perceived loss of power, prestige, pay, or benefits. The fear of personal loss is perhaps the biggest obstacle to organizational change. Many people will do whatever they can do to avoid that loss. Employees also often distrust the intentions behind a change or do not understand the intended purpose of the change. If previous working relationships with a manager or promoter of an idea have been negative, resistance may occur. Uncertainty is a lack of information about future events. It represents a fear of the unknown. It is especially threatening for employees who have a low tolerance for change and fear anything out of the ordinary. They do not know how a change will affect them, and they worry about whether they'll be able to meet the demands of a new procedure or technology. Another reason for resistance to change is that people who will be affected by the change or innovation may assess the situation differently from managers or promoters of the new idea. Critics frequently voice legitimate disagreements over the proposed benefits of a change. Managers in each department pursue different goals, and an innovation may detract from performance and goal achievement for some departments. These reasons for resistance are legitimate in the eyes of employees affected by the change. Managers should not ignore resistance. Instead, they should diagnose the reasons and design strategies to gain acceptance by users. Strategies for overcoming resistance and implementing change typically involve three approaches. 1. Making people aware of the need for the change by creating a sense of urgency. 2. Analyzing resistance through the force field technique. And 3. Using selective implementation tactics. Let's take a look. Many people are not willing to change unless they perceive a problem or crisis. A crisis or strong need for change lowers resistance. To effectively lead change, managers help people feel the need for change rather than just giving them facts or figures. Managers should remember that implementing change requires speaking to people's hearts as well as to their heads. Moving on, a force field analysis is a technique for determining which forces drive a proposed change and which forces restrain it. When a change is introduced, managers should analyze both the forces that drive the change, problems and opportunities, and the forces that resist it, barriers to change. By selectively removing forces that restrain change, the driving forces will be strong enough to enable implementation. As barriers are reduced or removed, behavior will shift to incorporate the desired changes. Another approach to implementing change is to use specific tactics to overcome resistance and more smoothly put changes into action. Researchers have studied various methods for dealing with resistance to change. The following are 5 implementation tactics. First, top management support. Next, communication and education. Followed by participation, negotiation, and coercion. Let's take a look at each. One survey found that 80% of companies that are successful innovators have top executives who frequently reinforce the importance of innovation, both verbally and symbolically. The visible support of top management makes people aware of the importance of a change and gives the change legitimacy. Without top management support, changes can get bogged down in squabbling among departments or contradictory orders from lower-level managers. Communication and education are used when solid information about the changes needed by users and others who may resist implementation. Participation involves the potential resistors in designing change. This approach is time-consuming, but pays off because users understand and become committed to the change. Participation helps managers determine potential problems and understand the differences in perspectives of change among employees. Negotiation is a more formal means of achieving cooperation. Negotiation uses formal bargaining to win acceptance and approval of a desired change. And finally, coercion means that managers use their formal power to force employees to change. Resistors are told to accept the change or lose rewards, or even their jobs. Many people prefer the status quo and tend to resist change. The biggest obstacle to organizational change is the fear of personal loss. Other reasons why people resist change are a lack of understanding and trust, uncertainty, and different assessments and goals.